Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you here today. But before we begin, I'm just gonna go over a few items. My name is Monica Ruiz, and I'm here. I'm gonna be your moderator for today. So feel free to reach out to me directly if you need any assistance. You can do that by going on the top right. There's a little blue chat bubble, and you can look up my name and send me a direct message there. I would like to direct you and make sure that you can see all of our features for this session. So you should see a vertical toolbar with some different icons. If you cannot see that, you might be on our event feed. You simply want to X out of that on the top right corner. And now you should be able to see the square bubbles for the chat, the Q&A, and if you want to ask a question, please go ahead and use our Q&A feature and vote on any of the questions you want to hear answered. We will try to get through as many as we can today, but definitely vote on the ones you want to hear the most. And again, if you need to step away, be aware that we do have a wellness room. You can simply exit out of this session and then go to the top left and click on the wellness room. I think that covers everything. So let's have a great session. It's my pleasure to introduce Darlene Hawley. She's a speaker, podcast host, and business coach who helps entrepreneurs and business leaders speak up, stand out, and make a greater impact. Based in Temecula, California, Darlene empowers teams to advocate for themselves and drive action. Welcome, Darlene.
Thank you so much, Monica, for having me. I am so excited to be here with each of you. Good morning, or I should say good afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. I love that we have people from Guam to Texas to North Carolina and New Jersey. We're all over the map today, and I am so excited to be with you as we talk about unleashing your authentic voice. And I want you to look through this through two lenses, depending on your role. And go ahead and share in the chat. Do you have a team that you lead? Or are you looking to get tips and ideas for today for how to unleash your authentic voice? And do you have a team that you want to help support and lifting up their voice as well? Because I want you to look through it through two lenses if you have a team today, which it looks like a lot of us do have a team. And a team could be a team of one. It could be, you could even consider your family as part of your team, because sometimes we're helping, our kids, our spouses, our best friends, and our colleagues to really use their voice and speak up. And so we're going to talk about how do we unleash our authentic voice, and then how do we support our team to come alongside us. And one of the things that I've learned over my 18 years as a leadership and business coach is that when we speak up, or when I speak up for the ideas and issues and matters that mean the most to me, it actually gives permission to the people around me to speak up and use their voice as well. And so look at it through that lens, like how can I use this tool for myself, and how can I teach my team to do these things as well? Because it's so powerful, as you know, when we speak up and we allow other people and give them the permission to share their ideas, their vision as well. And so what are we talking about today? We are going to talk about how I'm going to share with you the 5 key components to becoming a better communicator so that you can speak with more power and more impact. We're going to talk about comparisonitis. I don't know about you, but I think we're all probably guilty at different points in our life where we've compared ourselves to other people, to other leaders, to the way that other people are doing things. If we look at social media, right, you can easily hop onto social media and wish you were on vacation, or you wish you were having food that somebody else was having, or maybe you wish you were speaking on a stage or had that dream job, and we might compare ourselves. How do we take away that comparisonitis and really reclaim our voice so we can speak confidently and be seen as the thought leader that we are here to be? We're going to tiptoe a little bit into exploring how to use messaging that really calls people in and allows listeners to connect at a really deep level. And we're going to start the conversation about how do we navigate some of those hard conversations with more self-trust. So oftentimes, during these types of workshops, I like to think of it as building blocks. We're going to start with some easy, low stakes ways to speak up and start using our voice. And as we go through the workshop, We're going to also get to some of those bigger, harder conversations, like navigating a hard conversation. How do we do that where it feels really good for us and it also feels great for the person that we're having that conversation with? And so I'd love for you to share in the chat when you think about some of the things that I just shared that we're going to be talking about. What is coming up for you? Which of those would be something that would really, if you could just have like that one little takeaway today, would like change the game for how you're speaking up and how you're showing up? So while you're adding those in the chat, I'm just going to share a little bit about me. So my name's Darlene Holly, as Monica shared. I'm a communication and leadership development coach and trainer, and I support executives, senior leaders, as well as women and underrepresented rising leaders to find their voice and use it in a way that they can do it in presentations, during high stakes conversations, and also just during every old day boring conversations, right? Like we talk constantly. So when we think about those interpersonal conversations and communications that we're having, whether it's with a spouse, a partner, a friend, how are we showing up in those everyday conversations? And so I'm seeing in the chat, people are interested in how to have difficult conversations, how we bring our full self and our voice into the conversation. I love those. So how many of you have a fear of speaking? If I was to hand you the microphone right now, how would you feel? Go ahead and share in the chat. Like when you think about speaking, do you get a little bit of fear? Do you get some sensations that come up in your body? Some people love a good mic. They love to have the microphone passed to them. I love that. I'm seeing anxiety, nervous. We've got the scary emoji where we're like, that makes me think of Home Alone. A lot of anxiety, intimidation, nervousness. Yeah. Thank you for sharing those. I know it's brave, and we have to find a rhythm for ourselves that feels really comfortable, that allows us to authentically show up, to be ourselves. And we're going to talk today about like that anxiety, those nerves. I like to call those sensations. And we want to move those sensations through our body so that we can speak up and not let those nerves and those big giant butterflies and the quavering in our voice really get in the way. So I had just been promoted and moved from Las Vegas, Nevada, which is where I was born and raised, to take on a store up in Northern California as a new role and as an operations manager. And the store was struggling. I knew this before I took on the position, and I felt I was ready for this promotion to take on this new challenge. And as I got up to the new store and started talking to my general manager that I was going to be working with, he shared with me kind of what was going on, what had been working, what wasn't working, kind of how they got into the situation they were in, where maybe sales were low and their team members were not really showing up the way that they needed them to. And we sat down and we had a big discussion about what my vision and direction was going to be and kind of what I thought it was going to take for us to get where we needed to go to get the store back on track. And during that conversation, he let me know that the all-store team meeting was going to be on that Saturday morning with the whole entire team. And I think it was probably Tuesday or Wednesday that I'd got to the store. So I was only going to be there a couple days before this opportunity to get up in front of the team and talk to them. And I remember sitting down after our conversation and I wrote out my talking points. I practiced in my head what I was going to say and how I was going to say it. And if I'm honest, I had all those sensations that we were just sharing in the chat a minute ago. I had the anxiousness. I was a little bit nervous. I had the butterflies. And I was really aware that I hadn't had a chance to meet most of the people that were on the team yet. And so that was a little bit in my head, like I wish I knew everybody versus getting up in front of a team that I hadn't had a chance to meet yet. And I remember that Saturday morning, as I got up to speak, my hands started to shake. My voice started to quaver. I started to sweat in places that I didn't even know a girl could sweat. And it was like somehow everything that I knew magically was erased from my memory. And I remember stumbling through a few quick thoughts, probably 3 to 5 minutes talking in front of the group. And I remember passing the microphone back really quickly to my general manager and sitting back down. See, before I grabbed the microphone that morning, I felt completely confident that everybody was going to stand up. They were going to cheer. They were going to be excited for the vision that I laid out for where we were going. And instead, they all just kind of stared at me and did this awkward golf clap. It's kind of funny when I think back to it now. I can still see like it was like slow-mo. Maybe you can relate to this though. Have you ever given a presentation or walked into a meeting to have a high-stakes conversation, a sales negotiation, or to give feedback and felt like, wow, I just kind of winged it. I did not make the impact that I knew I could have made in this moment. See, that same behavior can still be showing up in the conversations you're having when you're communicating with clients, with team members, your spouse, family members, friends. I'm happy to share I don't quite think about my communication the way that I did in my early 20s, that first promotion that I was given where I got to get up in front of my team. Take a second and think. As you think back to times that you've struggled to speak up and use your voice, how might your lack of confidence or imposter syndrome have been creeping in and holding you back? And what might shift for you today if you focus on owning your story, allowing others to witness you, and on letting yourself be truly seen and heard? What would that look like for you? Go ahead and share in the chat. Like when you think about those moments, and I saw a lot of people sharing like, yes, I've been there, like 100%, like they had that nervous sensation when they got up in front of a group. But what would shift for you if you had the confidence and you didn't struggle to speak up because you trusted that what was going to come out of your mouth was exactly what the people in the audience or the person you were speaking to needed to hear in that moment? So we have a quick poll for you, Monica. If you could put up the poll. The question is, what do you see as the number one reason most people struggle to speak up and use their voice? It looks like the poll is up. So if you want to vote real quick on the poll, and we'll give you, I don't know, what do you think, Monica, like 30 seconds? We'll give it just a few. Yeah, I'm just glancing at the chat. Somebody said, I feel like there would be a lot less missed opportunities. I'd be able to deliver a clearer message. They'd be able to communicate more effectively if they trusted their voice. Ooh, somebody said they would be able to switch their profession and really do what they want to do. I love that. All right, let's see what the poll has to say. Monica, I'm not showing the results. Is there one more button maybe we need to push to show the results for it? So there was 4 choices you could pick. The first one was maybe you didn't have the confidence. The second one is winging the strategy and planning that you're doing. The third was over planning and falling into perfectionist. And then D, I said none of the above. And if you chose D, feel free to share in the chat what you think might be the reason.
So I'm not seeing showing on my end, so there's something wrong on our end, but I can read them out loud. So we have
Awesome. Yeah, what were the
75% said confidence, and then 12% winging their strategy and planning, 7% over planning, and 5% said none of the above.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing those. All right, so that's interesting. Is anybody surprised that 75% said confidence? That's a really high number. Usually when I get these results, it kind of is all over the board. But I do think that a lot of times it could be the confidence piece. We are afraid to show up. We're afraid to put our voice out there. Maybe we're comparing ourselves to other people. Maybe we're comparing ourselves to another leader that we worked with in the past and how they chose to lead their teams and how they communicated with their teams. And we're not sure if that worked well and we should follow their lead or example, or maybe we didn't like how we were being led prior. And so we're trying to change up the game so that we can be a better communicator. We can lead from a different angle in that moment. And then there's definitely times where we wing our strategies. Like if we think back to the story I just shared about that first time I spoke in front of my team, I prepared a little bit, but I kind of winged my strategy. I just had a few bullet points. I knew what I wanted to say, I thought, and I practiced in my head versus speaking it out loud before I got up that day. And so I didn't know what it actually was going to sound like when it came out of my mouth because I just was practicing it over and over again in my head and I didn't vocalize it. And there's been plenty of times where I could say each of us might fall into perfectionist and we're trying to make it perfect. We want every I dotted, every T crossed in those moments.
We do have a question.
Yeah.
Might be related. So it says, what's appropriate to self-disclose as a team leader? If I struggle with a disability and have lived experience, I don't want to feel like hiding. I want to be authentic and break down stigma, but not come off like making excuse or wanting sympathy.
So the question is, like, how do we show up and let people see us for who we truly are, is what I'm gathering from that. And that's one of those pieces that can vary depending on the group that you're with. I definitely encourage vulnerability and authenticity. And if there's things that are going to explain how you lead or how you're showing up and doing your work, share some of those pieces, but make sure it's a safe place. Make sure it's a place where they're willing to hear what it is that you have to say and they're going to support your needs in that moment. And I think especially if we're the leader in that situation, how powerful can it be if we share some of the things that we're struggling with and that we have going on a day-to-day basis? We're going to actually give an opportunity for our team members to share what's coming up in their lives and what might be pieces that maybe hold them back a little bit, or maybe that they're struggling with. Maybe they're struggling with, mental health issues and maybe they need some extra support. Maybe they're going through something at home with their family members. And when we create a space as a leader and we're leading from our heart and sharing what's coming up in our world, it's giving them a chance to really share what's going on and we can be there for each other. And so as long as it's a safe environment and you feel comfortable having that discussion, I would say definitely bring it up. Share with them. I actually have an autoimmune disease called rheumatoid arthritis, and it impacts my body in lots of different ways and at different points. And some days things are great. And then other days, like I can struggle to walk. And so that was something I don't necessarily need to talk about it as much in the work that I do now, because I do a lot of work from home and I do some traveling for work, but it's not for long stints of time. But when I worked in retail management, it became an issue and I had to start talking to my team about it. And so I would definitely invite you to start having those conversations. So I have up on the slide on the screen some different stats. And I don't know about you, but I personally love stats. And so I think it's fun to share kind of what those different pieces are. One of them says that 50% of employees at Microsoft, and this was with 6,000 employees that were surveyed, felt comfortable consistently speaking up to their managers, which sounds pretty cool. Like 50% of those employees feel comfortable speaking up. If we flip it though, it also shows that 50% of employees at Microsoft, so the other 3,000, did not feel comfortable speaking up to their managers and to their leaders. Another stat shows that every single time an employee doesn't speak up in their company, it's actually costing the organization $7,500, which is a pretty big number. So if you think about it as if we're not asking for the sale, if we're not asking for the support that we need to do our job properly, maybe we do need extra support because we have an autoimmune issue or something health-wise that's going on and we need extra support. And if we don't have the tools to do our job properly, it's going to cost us and the organization money in the long run. And then the third stat on the screen is 9 out of 10 people feel unsafe to speak up at work. And that word unsafe, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but how do we create a safe environment for our team to really be able to show up and be true and authentic to who they are, to feel like they can voice their concerns, share their thoughts in the way that they need to without feeling like there's going to be repercussion or there's going to be something that happens because they're sharing what they're feeling in that moment. So how do we create a safe zone so our team members, especially if you're a leader of a team, whether it's 1 to 5 million or 200, however many people are on your team, are you creating a safe space where they feel like they can come to you and share what's coming on without judgment, without feeling like they're going to lose their position or not get the next promotion in those moments? And so one of the things that we can do when we think about using our voice is practicing in what I like to call easy, low stakes conversation ways. And so I want to do a little activity with each of you. And if I wish we were all in a room where we could all see each other for this. If we were, I would have us get into a giant circle and we would each take a step forward and say the phrase that I'm going to give us all in a second. For this activity, though, in sake of time, we're going to do it in the chat today, and I'd love if everybody could participate from where you're at. We have to ask for what we want in life. We also need to share what it is that's important to us and what things we're working on. And so the game I want to play is never have I ever blank yet. So an example of this for me might be I might get up in front of the group and take a step forward and say, never have I ever become a best-selling author yet. Or maybe something a little bit more personal. I could say, never have I ever ridden in a hot air balloon over Temecula yet. Those are 2 dreams that I have of things that I'd like to see that I want to put out into the world. So I'm going to invite you now to share in the chat. How would you finish that sentence? Never have I ever blank, and then finish it with the word yet as well. Because these are things that we are going to do. We're calling in the universe, putting it out there to our colleagues, to other coworkers, to random strangers, because I doubt most of us even know each other here. But let us know, take a moment and just proclaim. And wherever you're sitting, if it's a safe space for you, like say it out loud as well. And I'm just going to read a few of them that I see coming in. Never have I ever performed on stage yet. Never have I ever visited another country yet. Never have I traveled to Greece. Never have I ever spoken confidently yet. Never have I ever traveled to Iceland yet. Never have I ever completed my master's degree yet. These are so good. Never have I ever written my book and started my business yet. Yes. Start that dream business. Put yourself out there. Write that book. Write that memoir. Never have I ever skydived yet. Never have I ever started my own, they move so fast sometimes, publishing company yet. Never have I ever given a keynote yet. These are so good. And share some love if you see some of these that like really call to your heart. Like give them a heart, give them a thumbs up. There's something powerful that happens when we proclaim what we want. And so I'm curious, as you're seeing people share in the chat, proclaim something they want, what is it like to witness them sharing? Go ahead and share in the chat. Like, what's it like to see all of these things that people want to do in life and that they're going to do, they just haven't done it yet? I'm seeing inspiring, exciting, motivating, encouraging. Oh, such a good one. Somebody shared that one of their never evers is never have I ever adopted a child yet. Yes, thank you for sharing that. It's affirming. Somebody said it's affirming. It's pretty amazing when we can witness other people stand in their truth and ask for what they want. And now to flip that a little bit, I'd love for you to share in the chat, what was it like for you to share one of your yets, one of the things that you want to do? Somebody said they feel very connected to everyone because they're sharing things that people that you're close to are not, that you're often were scared to share. People feel authentic, vulnerable. It's challenging. Makes me feel more accountable. Yeah, so good. Somebody said it pushes themselves forward. I love that. Yeah, we're pushing ourselves. It's one thing when it's inside of our mind and we know we want to do this thing, but we haven't told anybody yet. It's powerful what shifts Just by you proclaiming this out loud today, other people are hearing you, the universe is hearing you, God, if you're spiritual in that way, like put it out there. Don't be afraid to let other people know what it is that you want to do, because big things are happening. We want to do big things in this life. Yeah, somebody said speaking it as believing it. Absolutely. So I want to share a little bit with you about the Step into Your Moxie vocal empowerment system. And this is something that I use with all my clients, whether it's one-to-one coaching for with executives or business leaders, or if I'm coming in and working with teams. This is a model that I really, like a model framework that I use with all my clients to kind of talk about how do we use our voice in big ways? How do we communicate in a way that's impacting our mindset, our skill set? We're feeling psychologically safe to step into our moxie, whether we're walking into a room, into a conversation, onto a stage. And we want to be able to unapologetically speak up for ourselves and our ideas and the matters that mean the most to us as individuals. And then also as leaders inside of organizations, are we speaking up for the ideas and issues and matters that mean the most to the company? And with that, are we calling people to take action? So let's look at the bottom of the pyramid, which starts with our inner voice. So the inner voice that is in our head plays a huge role in the voice that comes out of our mouth. Think about that for a second. How we speak to ourselves with our mind impacts how we speak and communicate to other people. Are we playing nicely with ourselves? Are we saying positive things about ourselves? Are we looking in the mirror thinking great things? Or are we putting ourselves down a little bit? Are we saying, we don't like something about ourselves? Or who am I to walk into this room? Who am I to take on this position? Who am I to have this conversation right now? That doesn't serve us. So really take a look at an internal look at yourself. What does that inner voice look like? And how can we start to trust our inner voice so that we are able to speak to ourselves in a way that really feels good, and it allows us to really start showing up in the world and really communicating clearly with the people that we're talking with. So notice that for yourself. And I definitely challenge you, like if I was say like to give you a little bit of a challenge, notice over the next week how you're talking to yourself and make note, how do you switch it from a negative tone to a positive tone? It almost makes me think, I might date myself a little bit here, but like, remember when the cartoons would have like the angel on one shoulder that was saying all the good things, and then it had the devil on the other shoulder and it would like say all the negative things? How are we focusing on that angel on our shoulder versus listening to that self-critic in that moment? So take a notice at the inner voice. That is a huge part of how you're communicating, is based off of how you're talking to yourself. And then if we go up the pyramid, the next piece is the physiological sensations. And this is how we actually feel in our body when we enter a room, step onto a stage, pick up the phone, walk into that meeting boardroom. We want to be able to help people learn how to, or I want you to think about like, how do I help myself play nicely with all the sensations that are being felt inside of my body, and know that those sensations are not actually the problem. When we get warm because our face turns red, or our voice is quavering, or the butterfly feels huge in our stomach, it's actually our inability to use our breath and to use our self-talk to stay within dialogue within. So I want you to, next time those sensations start to feel really big in your body, take a breath. Tell yourself that you've got this. Be in a positive dialogue with yourself, and move your body, move those sensations throughout your body so that you have control over your body in that moment and you're able to take action. And then from there, if we go up to the third piece is messaging. And this is where we want to craft messaging that really calls people in and moves people to take action. So we want to look at the messaging of what we're saying to people, and also how it's making other people feel in that moment. There's the logical piece to the message of what we're saying, but there's also the heart. How are we making people feel in that moment? We also want to look at the mess in the messaging and make sure that we're sharing stories and speaking succinctly and confidently and clearly so people can really take notice of what we're saying and our message is landing the way that we're intending it to. So notice the words that you're using. What is the message you're trying to share? Are you being succinct and clear? There's probably plenty of time where I feel I could look back at life and I feel like I might have verbally vomited all over somebody. I might have said way too much, too fast, and they weren't sure how to take that information in or what to do with it. Notice where that's happened to you in the past and how maybe it wasn't serving you. How would it serve you and what would shift for you if you were more confident, succinct, and clear in your message? And then from there, we go up to presence, and presence is really about feeling seen and us being unapologetic about being seen. So standing confidently. We're going to talk about confidence and how we position ourselves in just a minute. When we get to the next part, we're going to have an opportunity to look at animals as archetypes and how we want to show up in that moment. And then the top of the pyramid is really how do we call people to take action? We want to move people to take action by using our persuasive skills. If we're trying to use our communication to change people's thinking, their mindset, and their behavior, we need to be able to make sure that we're moving them along with us. We need to get them to do things differently, switch things up. And we want to make sure that we're having a very specific call to action so that we move conversations, whether it's a sales conversation, a presentation, supporting a coworker, or a colleague, or a client. We want to make sure that we're presenting in a way that's moving them forward from there. And then if you look around the outside, all of the work that I do with my clients, I want to make sure that their self-empowerment and social justice wrapped into it. We're trauma sensitive. I'm not saying I'm trauma informed, but I'm trauma sensitive, knowing that almost 70% of adults have gone through some kind of traumatic experience at some point in their life. And if we add a pandemic into that, we can say 100% of people have gone through some kind of traumatic experience. Are we being sensitive to those things and what comes up for them? And then on the outside, on the other side of the pyramid is role play. How do we actually practice doing these things out loud and say things before we actually go have the conversation, and role play, do experiential learning, like put out into the universe like we did in the one activity, Never Have I Ever Yet. How do we proclaim those things and practice saying things out loud before we actually have those conversations? And so if we were to wrap it up into a little, to wrap it all together, I would say that the Step in Your Moxie vocal empowerment system is about cultivating empowering self-talk, playing nicely with sensations when they do come up, developing clear message, speaking with authentic presence, and unapologetically calling people to take action. And then it's backed by what's on the outside of the pyramid. To create that physiological safety means that the system is trauma sensitive, it integrates self-empowerment and social justice, and we use role play to try out skills so we can actually turn those into habits. All right, so let's play a little bit. I'm going to have us look at 3 archetypes, and I want to look at these animals as the animals that they are, and maybe some of the characteristics that we know and love from them. And also, how do we think about these animals as a communication archetype? How do we think about how they're showing up and like framing them into how we show up as human beings, as communicators? I'm just going to check the chat really quick and see what's coming up over here. Yeah, lots of good stuff. Awesome. Okay, just want to make sure we're tracking good. So I want to introduce you to the bunny, the dragon, and the cheetah. And so go ahead and share in the chat, when you think about a bunny, what are some characteristics? Let's just start there. What are some of those like first things when we think about a bunny rabbit? What are some characteristics? Warm and fuzzy, shy, meek, rapid, cuddly, quiet, soft, good listener, fairly peaceful. They hide, they hop away quickly. They're timid. Ooh, you guys are good at this. Yeah, so bunnies are soft and cute and cuddly. I also, where I live, we have wetlands that come through our neighborhood, which was reserved for like the animals to be able to stay here. And we have probably 1,000 bunny rabbits at any given day that I that are in throughout our neighborhood in the wetlands. And one thing I know about them is if I walk anywhere near them, they're out of here. They are on their way. They're taking a step to the side. They're going back to their hole. So if we think about bunnies as an archetype for our communication, oftentimes they're people pleasers. They might have some negative self-talk. Who am I to do this? They might be a little timid and taken back a little bit, like they're not as willing to like step up and speak up to the room. They might sit in the corner and not express what they're feeling. Or maybe they even apologize for even existing. So though they might, another way that you can look at it too is like maybe they speak softly. So they're not taking up space with their body. Maybe they have diminishing language, like they're not asking for what they want. They're kind of hem-hawing around it or kind of starting to say it, but they're not really being direct in that moment. So I'm curious, when you think about your communication style, where are you showing up as a people pleaser or not really standing in your power and using your voice? Maybe you're not speaking up in the meeting or raising your hand or asking for what you want. Where do you see that showing up for yourself? We're soft and cute. We're fearful. Somebody said, so you're describing me. Ooh, thank you for sharing that. My natural tendency, I would say, relates very much to the bunny rabbit. I could easily think back to myself in, my younger years, and I've had to work really hard to not stay in bunny. So somebody said, when asking for a raise, that feels like bunny rabbit because they're not speaking up, asking for more hours, more work, a raise. We don't want to rock the boat. Maybe we're fearful of authority. Somebody said they have a supervisor that always talks over them and they bunny in the corner during when that happens. Yeah. We're easily dismissed. Or or maybe you've had a moment where you kind of spoke up a little bit and you didn't really say everything you were thinking. You just shared like a little bit and then you sit back down. And then a couple minutes later in the meeting, somebody else says the same thing you said, but with more vocal power and maybe a little bit more context to it. And all of a sudden their idea is a hit and everybody's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And you're like, wait a minute, that was what I said, but we don't feel like we were heard in that moment. And so I know we can't see each other. You guys can see me, but I want you to take a second and I want you to find a position, whether you're standing or sitting, that feels like bunny to you. Like to me, when I think bunny, I think of like maybe my arms wrapped around myself, maybe my head's down, I'm looking towards the ground. Just find a pose that feels like bunny rabbit for you, or maybe you're playing a little bit small, you're not taking up as much space as you want to. And just hold that pose for the next like 10 seconds. All right, let's shake that pose off. Whatever you were holding on to as that bunny, like shake it off. And I'd love for you to tell me, what did it feel like in that pose? Like to me, I felt like I was playing small. I was hunkered down. It was kind of lonely, maybe. I'm seeing in the chat defensive, inadequate, uncomfortable, isolated, defensive, disempowered, cramped. Yeah, so good. And it's not to say that you're not going to have times where your communication type might want to stay bunny. You might hold back because you want somebody else to take the stage in that moment. But if you notice you're holding yourself back and not speaking up, you're feeling shrunken and small, ask yourself, why am I doing this? All right, so we're going to move on to the dragon. So dragons, what do we know about dragons? Go ahead and share in the chat. Like what comes up for you when you think about dragons? I think about dragons as they're fierce and fiery. Those were exactly what I was going to say. I love that those came up in the chat first. They're the opposite of bunny, right? They're taking up a lot of space. They're breathing fire. They're hot-headed, big and scary. loud and fierce. They take action first and they think about what they did later. Ooh, I love that one. Thank you for sharing that. So true. I don't know if anybody here has ever seen the movie Devil Wears Prada. If you have, you'll know that Meryl Streep is um, the lead in the story or in the movie, and her personality is big. And when she says something, you jump, and people jump constantly because of how she speaks to them. It's almost like her eyes could burn into you. Like she doesn't make contact. She barks orders. She takes up a lot of space. People are afraid and fearful when they're in her presence. And that's kind of dragon, right? That's our body language is rigid. We're closed off. Maybe we have forceful eye contact to dominate rather than to connect. I would also say the dragon shuts off their emotions, even the good ones, because they come across cold. And in the process, not only are they robbing themselves of insecurity and discomfort, but they're also giving the appearance that those feelings don't even matter. It's almost like they're cutting off the oxygen supply to the joy and gratitude. And they often are kind of lone rangers. They feel like they can do it all, they have complete control. I love the GIFs that are coming up in the chat for all the different characters too. So fun. But let's take a second and like, what does dragon look like for you in your body? Like, I want you to find a pose wherever you're at. For me, I think about like my claws are out, maybe my wings are big, my arms are taking up a lot of space. Maybe I've got like, it makes me think of like Supergirl, like when her eyes do the laser, like we could do that. Like find a space, find your pose and hold on to that for the next 10 seconds. All right, let's shake off the dragon because we don't want to, we need to be dragon sometimes. Like dragon serves us at different points, but I want to introduce you to a new communication archetype. I want us to talk about the cheetah for a minute. So let's share in the chat. What do you think of when you think about cheetahs? They're sly, they're confident, they're reserved, they're fast, they're quick. Yeah, graceful, fierce. They're stalking, they're powerful, they're smart, cunning, smooth and quick. Yeah, such good ones. They're very strategic. That they are. So I like to think of cheetahs as being pretty badass. They can accelerate faster than any other animal. They can go from 0 to 65 miles per hour in just a few short seconds. They have flexible spines, which allow them to take big strides and make conscious decisions. They like to hang out in places where they have a very clear view of everything. Cheetahs really take in the whole entire situation of what's going on around them before they respond, before they react. Cheetahs also like to rest a lot. They like to sit back, relax, enjoy what's going on around them. They don't feel like this pressure to constantly be taking up space and be attacking constantly, going after their prey. They've also got those big, arresting, present eyes, and they have the tear marks that run from their inner corners of their eyes down to the outer edges of their mouth. And unlike the bunny, who's meek, and the dragon, who spews fire, the cheetah kind of just has it going on. She's flexible, she's fast, she's present. When we think about that from a communication standpoint, the cheetah embraces ideas of other people. She asks for what she wants. She speaks and also listens, focuses on the audience, has good connection, good eye contact, maybe is a little bit humorous, still shares some stories, is flexible in those moments when she needs to be. And she can make quick choices based off of what she's seeing because she sits back and observes first before she responds. So think for a second, what is that speaking communication archetype if we think about the cheetah? do for us and being really present and powerful in those moments. And so I want you to just think about the cheetah for a second, and somebody said calculated. Like, yeah, the cheetah is very calculated. Find a pose that feels confident for you. And I'm sitting, like when I think about this, I usually am standing like my feet are hip distance apart. My palms are open. My shoulders are back. My belly button's pulled into my spine. Find a pose for yourself. And I want you to hold on to that pose for the next 10 seconds. Notice how you feel in your body right now. I do not want you to shake this one off. I want you to keep this one. So don't shake this one off. Keep it powerful. What do you notice in your body when you think about being a cheetah? How can you show up more confidently? Communicate more clearly, observe what's happening and really listen and communicate just as equally, and share from your heart. Not as always a logical piece that comes from our brain, but how do we share from our heart as well? We feel confident, relaxed, self-assured, poised, and calm. Ooh, tension that is empowering and driven. Yeah, somebody said that they do a different type of animal analogy. And yeah, there's so many different ways that we can pull this together. But the strength and the energy that comes from the cheetah can be really powerful. So notice how your confidence and communication happens over the next few days. Where do you see yourself being bunny? Where do you see yourself taking up space as a dragon? And what shifts if you really consciously focus on being a cheetah? So we are going to move on to an activity that we can do together. We're just going to do it in the chat today. I want you to take the framework on the screen, and I want you to think about who you are and what is it that you're really good at. And so some people don't love the word expert. So if the word expert feels kind of icky to you, that's okay. You can say you're passionate about, you're an expert in, whatever that word is that feels appropriate for you there. What's something about you that you are really good at and that you wish more people knew, and that if you don't tell them, they're not going to know? I want you to think about, we just talked about, like, how do we address our self-talk? How do we practice using our voices? How do we start to illuminate your goals for speaking up? And in this activity, it's going to give you an opportunity to speak up as an expert in front of your fellow summit participants and really let people know who you are. And so I'd love if you'd use the framework in the chat and just introduce yourself to everybody. And an example of this might be, I could get up in front of the group, or I could copy and paste into the chat and say, hi, my name's Darlene Holly. I'm an expert in communication and messaging. Please ask me questions about how to speak up and use your voice so that I can help you walk in any room, into any conversation, or onto any stage and unapologetically speak up for yourself and the ideas and issues and matters that mean the most to you. What would yours look like? Oftentimes we introduce ourselves and we just say who we are, what our title is, what company we work for, and we kind of leave it at that. We don't leave the person with ideas of why they want to call us again, why they want to touch base again, what we can help them with. And so you can use this framework when you're out networking and you're introducing yourself maybe to a group of colleagues that maybe are in the same industry as you. Maybe you're an HR leader and you're going to an HR conference where everybody's going to get up and say who they are, that they're HR leaders for this company. How do you set yourself apart to really build those authentic relationships and communicate what you're really good at? You can also use the same framework if you are going to a different type of event. If you bump into somebody at Starbucks and they ask you a little bit about yourself, you can let them know what you're good at. Self-proclaim how you can support people is going to open up doors to build stronger relationships than just saying who we are, what we do. and the type of work that we do. So I'm just going to go to the chat, and I see some are starting to come in, and I'm just going to pick one. Let's see. I'm going to go with Cheryl. So Cheryl says, hi, my name is Cheryl. I'm an excellent tennis player. Please ask me questions about joining USTA League so I can help you enjoy the competitive and fun game. It keeps popping of team tennis. I love that. So you're sharing something totally personal, something that is going to grab attention. If somebody's interested in getting involved with tennis, they're going to love that. I'm just going to read. Let me see if I can find another one here. My name is Tracy. I'm an expert in motivating and empowering. Please ask me questions about ways to move through difficult situations so I can help you move forward and get unstuck. Oh, I love that. Thank you. Go ahead and share yours in the chat. And then also start to think what is what is it like to hear people introduce themselves this way? And how can that connect you with the right people because of maybe similar values, similar hobbies, similar experiences, similar things that you're interested in? Or maybe you need help. Maybe you need help advocating for your district. And I see here Dominique says, I'm an expert in educational advocacy with my district. Please ask me questions about your school's administration and resources so that I can help you advocate for your child based on your needs as a family. Oh, that's so good. I love that. Now I know why to reach out to you. I know what you can serve me with. And especially if I have a problem and you're that solution, I'm seeing you and hearing you in a totally different light. So this is in the handout as well, so you can have a copy of this. Use this framework the next time that you introduce yourself, and come back and let me know. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, just at Darlene Holly, and let me know how it goes. Let me know if you notice a difference in how people connect and how you start to have conversations. It can be game-changing for opening up new doors, building new relationships, and we never know when we're going to need those relationships, right? You might have somebody that you worked with in a different life who sees you in an event and sees how they can connect with you. Maybe there's going to be a time where you need a job and someone's going to remember something you said and oh, I know somebody who's really good at this. Let me introduce you. It's also going to help with your clients, your prospecting, your sales, just by standing powerfully. And I would also, because we're not able to do this while we're together today, normally I would have you get up on your feet and say this to each other, and I'd put you in pairs of two and you'd practice this. Say this out loud. Maybe later today, take the script that you wrote and copy and paste it into a different document and practice saying it out loud, and notice how your body responds. Notice how you say it. Notice where you want to tweak it a little bit because of how it comes out and how it's landing with your audience. All right, these sessions go really quick, and I shared that we were going to talk a little bit about difficult conversations. And so we're going to kind of tiptoe. If we were at the pool, we'd maybe be putting our pinky toe in the water, testing it to see if it feels refreshing and we want to dive in. So I want to start to talk a little bit about difficult conversations and how do we turn them from difficult to a daring conversation. And so typically 4 things can happen when we have a difficult conversation that we know we need to have. And I'd love if everybody could just think of what's one thing going on in your life right now, and it could be at work, at home, whatever it is. What's a difficult conversation you know you need to have? And if you're feeling up to it, drop it in the chat. You don't have to give any details. Maybe it's you want to talk to a boss about a raise. Maybe you want to talk to a team member who is maybe not engaging the way they need to at work. What are some things that come up for you? Somebody said they hate when somebody snaps at them. Perfect. So that's a difficult conversation. You want to talk with them about them snapping at you. So there's 4 things that can happen when we have a difficult conversation. You can avoid the conversation. I like to think of this as ostrich. I can bury my head in the sand and avoid it at all costs. We probably all avoided conversations at some point. The second thing that can happen when we have a difficult conversation that needs to be had is we can wing the conversation. We can maybe think out of a couple ideas of what we want to say. We can, roll it over in our head a few times, and we could just go have the conversation. Or I'm sorry, winging it That's more the third one, like the mental script. But wing could just be like we walk in and we have the conversation heated in the moment. Maybe we're upset. Maybe we're seeing red. We're frustrated. We're annoyed. 3 is we mentally script it, where you plan what you want to say and you practice it over and over and over again in your head, kind of like I did when I got up and shared the story at the beginning of our conversation today. When I got in front of my team, I would say I mentally scripted what I wanted to say that day. I never said it out loud. And 4 is you can strategically prepare for the conversation by role playing it and then showing up and having the conversation. The key is to shifting from difficult to daring is choosing number 4 and practicing saying the conversation out loud before you actually go and have the conversation so you know how it lands. And so I want to talk about just a couple of quick tips that you can take for yourself today. And there's more to this. So if you feel like you need more, reach out to me. Let's schedule a time that we can talk. Maybe you need support with your team and I can come in and work with you and your team on how to have daring conversations and really embody this message so that we can speak up clearer and easier. But I want to give you some nuggets of some little things to think about when we're preparing for a daring conversation. The first one is schedule the conversation. Instead of walking into the room and letting somebody know that you're upset and sharing in the moment, sometimes that's appropriate depending on what's happened. Sometimes it's letting yourself cool off a little bit, letting the other person cool off a little bit, and scheduling a time where you're like, hey, I'm seeing Julie's name at the bottom of the chat, so I'm going to play with Julie for a second. Julie, do you mind do you have time tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to have coffee? I want to talk to you about something that was said earlier today in our team meeting. And then Julie can say, yes, 10 o'clock works great for me. I know that we're going to talk about what happened in the meeting, as well as Julie knows now that I want to talk about what happened in the team meeting. So Julie can prepare for the conversation and I can prepare for the conversation. The second piece is we want to reverse engineer what you plan to say from your desired outcome. What's the outcome that you desire from having this conversation? Do you want clarity? Do you need to solve it in that one meeting? Can you start the process during that conversation? So know what your desired outcome is when you go in. The third one is identify the questions that you can ask to learn other people's truths. So often when we're upset and we feel like we're having a difficult conversation, we want to come in and talk the whole time and share what we're feeling. What happens and shifts if we actually ask some questions and really learn what was going on for the other person in that moment? A lot can shift. And then the fourth one is distinguish what you're entitled to say from what you want to say. And that, like, really listen to that. Distinguish what you are entitled to say from what you want to say. Sometimes we want to say more and maybe we want to say something that's hurtful. What are you entitled to say in that conversation? The next one is speak your words. Share your truth. Share what you're feeling. Let them know what's coming up for you. And then from there, we want to bless and release before you say anything at all. You have no idea how the conversation is going to go. But you know you can show up prepared, ask some great questions, listen, share your truth, and bless and release what the outcome is going to be. And then the last part of it is, how do we play nicely with the sensations that come up in our body in that moment? Remember to breathe. Oftentimes when we're upset, our breathing is really shallow. You can put your hand on your belly and on your chest. Take a breath in and notice if you're feeling your breath change in your belly, or if it doesn't get to your belly, then you're not breathing deep enough. Breathe in to where your belly fills with oxygen and air, not just your chest. And that can help move some of those sensations that are coming up when you're in that conversation. I know I've shared a lot in a quick hour with you. I'm putting up on the screen a QR code. I would love to stay in touch with you. Please come connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Darlene Holly. I'd love to hear what's one of your takeaways, and you can share them over on my LinkedIn. I'd love to get to know you better and connect there. Let me know what your big takeaway is. And also feel free to share in the chat right now. Like, what's one thing from today's conversation that you're taking that you can implement for yourself? And then what's one thing that you can go back and teach your team to help support not only your authentic voice showing up every day, but helping your team members as well. I also have a free resources called the 10 Do's and Don'ts for Effective Daring Conversations. It's got 5 conversation starters and 5 that are positive, things that you want to start doing. And then there's also 5 things that we want you to stop doing so you can have daring conversations and you can continue to show up every single day. And if I'll be doing a raffle for anybody who signs up for the 10 do's and don'ts, you'll be getting an email from me with some next steps to inviting you to a roundtable discussion so we can talk about this a little bit deeper, as well as I do quarterly leadership, book clubs, and lots of different fun things and ways that you can make sure that you're supporting your voice in your community, as well as helping your team members as well. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun, Monica. Thanks for having me in here. And if you have any questions or thoughts or comments or concerns, I'm always happy to hop on a call with you and see what does your team need? What kind of support do you need to really up-level your communication and make the impact you're trying to make? Thank you so much.
Thank you for that empowering presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. And don't forget to download those resources, just a stack of paper icon on your toolbar so that you can contact Darlene and keep getting those wonderful resources from her. Thank you all.